Hey guys, let's take a look at genes and alleles. Okay, I'm gonna increase this in size here. All right. So we've been talking a lot, about genetics this week. Specifically, we've focused a lot on traits. So we talked about inherited traits versus acquired traits. Acquired traits would be the learned behaviors, skills that we acquire over time, such as the ability to read and write, the ability to walk, the ability to possess or demonstrate certain skills. Some of us had said, hey, an acquired skill I had was learning how to throw a baseball, or learning how to kick a soccer ball. But our main focus in this unit is going to be the inherited traits like eye color or hair color, or whether or not we have freckles, or whether or not we have dimples. All these traits that are passed from our parents to us. So, just a quick recap. Some of the traits that we mentioned. If you look right here, we talked about hairline. So some people inherited the trait for a widow's peak, some people did not. And the widow's peak, we said, was just that where your hairline comes out, it makes almost like a V, versus someone who has a straight hairline, as you can see here. Tongue rolling was another one we mentioned this week. I thought it was kind of funny because a lot of people were telling me that they taught themselves how to roll their tongue when in reality, this is actually an inherited trait. So this was new to some of us this week, but I think we understood the concept of inherited and acquired traits. So then we started talking about genes. All right, we did a reading where we talked about genes and where they were located and where they come from. So essentially, genes are passed on to us from our parents, but their location, we said, is they're part of our DNA, which is found within our nucleus, which is found within our cells. And we covered that cells heavily earlier in the year. So if I real quick, I'm just going to kind of box this off right here. Okay. There's different portions or segments of the DNA, and this is where we would find our genes. Okay. Now, in that segment of DNA, you'd have your chromosomes. Okay. And here's our chromosomes, as you can see right here. And we said chromosomes comes in pairs. And we talked about the fact that we get one set from mom and one set from dad. So that gives us a total of 46 chromosomes because we have 23 pairs. All right. So chromosomes come in pairs, and we have 23 pairs times 2 because we get one from mom and one from dad. That gives us 46 total. Now, we said our genes are located on our chromosomes, and they have a specific, so I'm just going to put this gene right here. And the location spot is going to be called the locus. As we said, that's scientists, or the fancy word in science for location. So this gene that I've drawn right here, we're going to hypothetically say that's the gene for freckles. Okay? So genes come in, they're identical. They come in forms. So here's an allele, okay, which is the form of a gene. And this is also an allele. Okay? So just to recap, genes are found in our DNA. So each segment of the DNA, which is where you'll find your genes, and they're located on our chromosomes. We get one set from mom, one set from dad, because we talked about the reproductive cells where the sperm, which is the male reproductive cell, will carry a gene, and the egg, which is the female reproductive cell, will carry a gene. So when fertilization takes place and that new cell is developed, which we said was the zygote, you inherit one from each. That gives you the pair. So Um, let's move forward here. Okay. Let me X this out for a second. Because I just wanted a blank tab to draw on. What the? Just wanted a blank tab to draw on here for you. Okay. So let me get rid of sorry about that. Let's get rid of this here. Okay. So now if I'm back here, let me and again remember I'm not the greatest artist in the world here, but I'm gonna draw uh, an individual chromosome. So here's the chromosome from dad, and here is a chromosome from mom. And then I also said I'm going to put our allele here. Okay. So let's say, sorry, a gene. So let's say that this is the gene for dimples. Okay. Let's use dimples because we haven't really talked about dimples. So each gene comes in the form of an allele. So you can have a dominant form or you can have a recessive form. Okay. So let me put my chromosomes back up. All right. Now I'll put my gene here. So we said the form of a gene is an allele. All right. You can have the dominant or you can have the recessive. Okay. So the difference between the two is anytime the dominant allele is present, that trait will always show. Okay. Whether or not, let's hypothetically say this was the dominant gene right here. Okay. And this was the recessive allele. If you have this dominant allele, the trait will always show. So let's hypothetically say that so let me erase this right here so we have a little bit of room. But let's just say that dimples is a dominant trait. Okay, which means you need to have the dominant allele in order for that trait to show, or you need to have at least one of those alleles for that trait to show. We represent the dominant allele with an uppercase letter, and we always use the first letter of the trait. So we're talking about dimples. So if you have dimples, we're going to represent that with a uppercase or capital D. The recessive will always be represented with the lowercase letter. Okay, and we use the first letter of the trait that we're talking about. So here we're talking about dimples. A common mistake a lot of people make is they'll use R and they'll make it a lowercase r because they're thinking recessive. That's not how it works. Our symbols are going to be letters, and we use the first letter of the trait that we're referring to. So if this allele coded for dimples, we'd use our uppercase D. If this allele right here, okay, if this guy right here coded for no dimples, that would be the recessive allele, and we'd use a lowercase d. Okay? And that's just a little bit more about the difference between genes and alleles.